This is a female-founded company. Not only that, does anybody know who Pete Legal is? And he's looking down upon us right now.
CEO.
He started Forged On, right? This is his daughter's company. What a great way to be able to just bring the heartstrings in for the ladies' sake, right? We're all smart salespeople here. Mama Bear typically has the checkbook, right? What a great way, before I even start to talk about the product, talk about a good love story. We just talked about how love is very important, right, Taos? So talk about what no one else can talk about, maybe outside of Ashley and Ember, right, with the Bontrager Group. But what a great love story. Before I even talk about the product, you've got to bring in their heartstrings. Hey, folks, do you know that this is female inspired? Oh, wow. You know what the wife says to the husband? Oh, I can tell, honey. So it's just a great way to bring them inside the door, right? So I wouldn't be doing my job without telling a good love story. What makes a good handyman or a good salesperson or a good sales lady is they have all the right tools to be able to break them out when you need them, right? That may not move the needle, right? But what it does is bring us in the door, right? And it gives us an opportunity to talk about what? Construction. Construction is going to be our hot button, right? So I'm going to bash these guys a little bit. Cougar, and again, it's apples to apples. You know what most manufacturers do is they take the path of least resistance. They're going down in price after COVID, right? So in other words, they're not giving you big windows. They're taking things out as far as construction goes. So I like to talk about 5 things with regard to construction. Did you know this is 6-sided aluminum? Do you know a Keystone Cougar has wood in the roof? Do you know a Grand Design Imagine has wood in the roof? They also have wood in the floor. I'm not bashing these guys, but why did they do that? They don't want to spend the money on it, right? So my job here today, this 2600 RV is my #1 seller here in this Pacific Northwest. You know, out of these 2 states, Oregon and Washington, I've sold this coach 19 times. My dealers combined, with you guys included, this coach sold 19 times this year. My #1 seller, it's under 30 feet. Obviously, you've got to get to know your buyer. If they're a campground person, if they're a dry camper. If they're a dry camper, I'm going to talk about the things that really matter to them, right? 400 watts of solar. Most manufacturers are giving you 100 or 200 watts. We give you a 30 amp controller, we can go up to 550 watts. We're not going to be beat as far as technology. This has a 2,000 watt inverter. What a great way to figure out, oh, you like coffee in the morning? Well, guess what? You can use your battery to be able to use your 110 plugs to use coffee in the morning, right? So it's all about finding out what the buyers are. Going back to construction, it's 6-sided aluminum, where all my manufacturers are going against 4 or 5-sided, because they don't want to spend the money. So my benefit to that is, this is a 30-foot coach, I'm giving you more bang for your buck, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. We're 300 to 400 pounds lighter just by giving you more aluminum than the average bear. So we're investing in the construction. Not only that, anywhere where I put a hole in a sidewall, rear door, slide out, I perimeter in aluminum as well. You know, most manufacturers hone in on the lamination portion for strength. We don't do that, right? We actually overkill the build. So if somebody wants to talk about an engineer, they want to know if it, you know, down to the screw, the tire, the wheel, the axle, this is a meticulously thought out product. We actually are combined with a lot of the techniques that, you know, Forest River has been known for a long time. So 6-sided aluminum. Every hole is perimetered aluminum. And here's a big pitch, you guys. How many times do you guys talk about all seasons and 4-weather and all this other? That's a lot of just fugazi nonsense, right? Break it down. This is a 2-inch thick sidewall here in the rear wall, 2-inch in the slide out box, 2-inch in the sidewall, 5 inches in the roof. Guys, we parked a Toyota Tacoma on top of this roof, and people ask me what the snow is. I try not to laugh, right? So again, it's overkill, and it's all about finding the hot buttons to the customer. As far as craftsmanship, that's why I start off with right out of the bat after the story. 6-sided aluminum, perimetered aluminum, 2-inch thick sidewall. Do you know what a Cougar has? Do you know what Imagine has in their XLS 1.5? And I'm not bashing these guys. Everybody knows insulation has to do with width, right? So if you're talking about 4 seasons and you're talking about all this stuff, why would you skimp on sidewall thickness? Because they don't want to spend the money, right? So we're giving you more invested goods, whether they're living in it, whether they're extended season, it doesn't matter. We've got the best insulation in the business. You always use the styrofoam cup analogy. You've got 1/8 inch styrofoam cup, you've got scalding hot coffee in that cup. Think about how many cups are grounded up inside this. You've got most high-end homes nowadays using block foam, high density foam. So rather than giving you an R value, R14, what happens if they go down to Curtis or Camping World, the guy says R15? We've lost, even though we have a thicker sidewall. Did you know that company down there, and it starts with Wrinkly, they have an 1.5-inch sidewall, you guys, and they're 20 grand more than us. And I'm not bashing these guys. I've done my homework. This feeds my family, and I know my competition really well, so there's no reason why they're gonna go look at a Cougar, Imagine, any one of us, Delta. There's more competition in this fiberglass than any other, than fifth wheels, than stick and tin, than any. So we gotta be on our game, right? So when you put on the Alta hat, Alta means elevated in Latin. right? So it's our Cadillac, right? We're very proud to tell you Alta is a top 10 laminated brand with only 8 years. So we're really gaining the momentum into the West Coast, and we're growing with you guys, and we're thankful for that. Here's another cool thing. The floor is plywood. A lot of these manufacturers, and I'm not beating up Keystone, but what they do, they've been building for a long time the same way. So what does Keystone Cougar do? Again, I'm not bashing these guys. They put OSB in their floor. I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather have real wood than beaver puke, right? It costs us more for a plywood sheet than OSB, which is why we use plywood here. It's the old Jayco pitch forever, right? Can't get a better built trailer than this. My floors are 12 inches on center this way. There's nobody doing that. Everybody does 16 inches on center this way, so our floor is even stronger than most. It's a 3-inch thick subfloor. I can get down to the nitty gritty, but talking about construction, that's our hot sauce. Rockwood has a 4-inch thick block foam roof. Most manufacturers don't put block foam in the roof, right? Solaire does, a couple others. 90% of manufacturers, we've just blown them out of the water just the way we go, right? And we haven't even started to talk about the rest. So with time permitting, I'm not gonna talk about this any further, but you've got the best build trailer in the business, right? For $43,900, that's a hands down a deal. I've walked this entire lot yesterday. You've got this coach at $39,900 to $49,900. This is $43,900. There's no reason why that buyer, you can't bump them from $39,900 to $43,900 or go downwards, right? So as far as construction goes, we're not going to be beaten.
You said laminated, but is it?
It's pitch rolled. Thank you very much, Red. It's pitch rolled on anything here, right? Sidewall, slide outs, rear wall. It's vacuum bonded in the roof because I can't pitch roll a vacuum bonded roof when it's curved, right? So that's a great pitch. If you do it the right way, you're going to get the end result. Most motorhomes do a vacuum bonded wall. We all know that, but we actually do our own walls in-house, so we're controlling the quality, right? So it's really nice to be able to talk about that. Here's the final thing with construction, and I'll move on to parts. We have Azdel behind this, right? We all know what Azdel is. I won't go any further, but it's composite. You know what Grand Design has? And I'm not bashing these guys, right? They do a good job, but they're all my buddies. They have a 1/8-inch piece of wood. What is that? That's cardboard. And if a customer, unfortunately, doesn't do their due diligence, what happens to cardboard when it gets wet? I don't know about you, but I'd rather have composite, right? God forbid if I don't check the seals after 2-3 years, which is typically the #1 reason why leaks happen. I've got Azdel here, and on the inside wall I have Azdel. We don't need to do that. Manufacturers don't need to do that. You know what? Azdel's 3 times as much money as the one. So why do we use it? And if you're not talking about that, you leave money on the table. I could add power jacks and solar all day in your service department. You can't add more insulation, right? So definitely talk about this. This is our sweet spot. Parts, features and benefits, right? What's the feature? 400 watts of solar. What's the benefit? I'm talking to a dry camper. You've got 400 watts. That's awesome, baby. You can go up to 550 watts. Kind of working from the top, from the ground up. Let's do that. So, I'm kind of cheesy. There's 8,000 parts that make an average trailer. It's a lot of parts that could go bad, right? It would be foolish for us to just tell you all this, what we've done to invest in the build and what you don't see, and then use an inferior part. That's not our game, right? So everything from the ground up, we use a Goodyear tire. Name another better tire. You're not. 5-year warranty, right? I like to back it up with the benefit of a warranty, right? Most of all these tire companies, if it doesn't have Goodyear on the side, it's 90-day warranty and a 1-year guarantee. That's it. I actually dealt with a customer the other day that bought an Alta in Arizona. They had some tire problems. You know what Goodyear did? They sent them a tire straight to their house free of charge. I don't know about you, but that's world-class service, right? So the best tire and axle combo in the business. You know, we use Dexter axles. There's Alco axle, there's Lippert. Most of all of us use Lippert. We don't use Dexter. If anybody knows Dexter, since 1960, they have the best reputation for axles. So now, it's not only just giving you more features and benefits, but also giving you confidence in the build, right? And God forbid there's an issue, you call me. Please call me. Give out my number. I'm not saying that I'm the greatest, right? But I want to be with you in the wins when we sell 5 of these today, and I want to be with you in the trenches if there's an opportunity to be better, right? If there's an opportunity that I can fix, get me involved, right? We've been doing this for a long time. That's the best way to hit any opportunity as far as service goes. Hit it right between the eyes and let's get it back camping. All right, so going back on parts, Goodyear tires, Dexter axles. We do an 8-inch I-beam chassis on this coach. Anything over 35 feet is going to be on a 10-inch I-beam. You know the difference between our chassis and somebody else's? Even though it's Lippert, 95% of us use all the same frame, right? Doesn't mean they're all the same. This is double powder coated. A lot less likelihood to rust. Don't ever say it's not going to rust, right? We all know that. So we don't have to do that. It's double powder coated. That's awesome. We spend more money on the average bearer than somebody else. Not only that, check this out. If we're talking to a dry camper, we just talked about how important important it is to have the best tire underneath you. This coach is high up off the ground, of course, which is very important. But what's really neat about it is you've got an 8-inch I-beam, you've got insulation underneath it, double, right? So I like to talk about this. So you may not be able to see it, but there's flex foil underneath there. So you got 60 gallons of gray, 53 gallons of fresh water, and 30 gallons of black, right? So this is under 30 feet. You continue to build this coach from the ground up. Our chassis, even though it's 8 inches thick, we have a full height cross member, you guys, every 36 inches. So 8 inches where your chassis is at, where your tanks are at. Most manufacturers have 3 full height cross members. We double them, right? So we've got the best, strongest chassis in the business, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, even though, you know, it's Lippert, right? So I can break it down to that even, right? So really finding out what your competition is, but we're a company that's going to give you the best build in the industry. We're going to team up with the best parts in the industry. If you go to our plant in Elkhart, Indiana, and I encourage you to do this, act like a buyer. You can go into our plant any day of the week and get a factory tour. Not one manufacturer can say that. That's pretty cool, right? And it's cool to just put it in your back pocket. You know what? Hey, this is what these guys do. You can eat off of our floor. Do you think for a reason before Pete died, Pete Legal, the man, the myth, the legend that started Forest River, that he wouldn't set his daughter up for success? We've got the best GMs. We've got the best people. We have over 500 employees. And it's so cool to be able to tell you guys that. So going back on the parts, I always like to take it a step further too. We got plywood in our floors, but it's flush, right? How many times you talk to somebody that has a dog or a cat, right? I mean, this is what we do in this game, right? In a Keystone Cougar, and I'm not bashing these guys, but that's the #1 laminated trailer, so I'm gonna go up, you know, they have a crosshair on them. You know what they do? They've been running this same thing forever. With their OSB floor, they run a plenum, heated plenum front to back. The problem with that is if I have a dog, which I have two, and they're awesome, golden retrievers, I'm going to worry about getting my dog's claws caught in that little heat duct that's in the middle of the floor. So not only does my competition put a hole in the floor, which you're walking on 95% of the time, it weakens that floor, not only is it OSB, not plywood, but they're giving you a hole that's going to have dirt down inside there. How many dry cameras do we tailor to? So it's really a nice way to talk about this. I'll take it a step further, you guys. Our linoleum is 60 mil ply. It's commercial grade. Most manufacturers use residential style. I can break it down to any part, right? That's why I like to talk about features versus benefits. It's obviously 8 foot wide. When we bring in our linoleum, it folds over. It's actually wider than 8 feet. There's a reason for that. It folds over about 3 inches on both sides. We wrap our linoleum down here, and then the sidewall sits on top of it. Not a lot of manufacturers do that either, because they don't want to spend more money on the bigger roll. Right? How cool is that to be able to tell somebody? The #1 thing that happens to water leaks is not only neglect, but also this is an earthquake on wheels, and any connector is going to maybe break loose, right? Because what are those guys doing? They're using plastic connectors. I guarantee you, we just talked about this with somebody, go inside the P-traps, go inside our docking station, every connector that's PEX plumbing, that's a 90 or perpendicular is metal, right? What do manufacturers use? They're using plastic. If I'm in a hot area, it's going to contract and expand. I'm breaking it down on another level, right? And I can do that with this product because that's what we do, right? It's also important to talk about what you see on the inside, right? We use the best steps in the business. You guys have noticed that there's a lot of different steps out there. We love our feet love these steps, right? But MoreRide, you're not going to find a better brand. I guarantee it. You have the classic ones out there. You have everybody else using Lippert. You know, MoreRide, we spend a lot of money to use that name. Goodyear hit us with an 18% price increase. Guess what? We still use Goodyear, right? So we're not afraid to be able to use that to our benefit and give you the better part, give you a better camping experience. That's what it's all about. Thicker sidewalls, plywood, 400 watts of solar, 2,000 watt inverter. Every single plug is highlighted off the inverter. Not just 1 or 2 plugs, every one of them, right? How much money does that cost, right? So it's really a nice way to be able to find out what that customer's wants and needs are. 50 reasons to buy, it takes 2 or 3 to close the deal, right? So as far as parts goes, we're not going to be beat. As far as construction goes, we're typically not going to be beat. 81-inch tall ceilings on the inside, nice grandiose approach. Right when you walk in, you've got a nice place for jackets. It's just a fun coach to pitch for the money, you guys. Obviously, a porcelain toilet, I'm not going to talk much about that. I will talk about my black tank. We use the same black tank as our Class C. And what that means is it's rotor-casted, right? It's seamless on the inside. I'm an avid camper. A lot of my buddies have home trailers. They just emptied their tanks and it still says their sensors are full. happens a lot, right? So we're talking about what could happen to a trailer. What does East to West do to be able to combat that, right? We're giving you armor around the trailer and a really fun coach to pitch, right? So again, it's all 5-liter hot buttons. So as far as parts goes, king vent, porcelain toilet, I mean, the list goes on and on. We have a little dog tray. I mean, point that out to customers. I've never had one person say, Ryan, I love you, but you talked about too much storage. Did you know this little 30-foot trailer has 29 doors, drawers, and cubbies? 29. That's almost one cubby and storage per foot. That's pretty incredible, right, for a small trailer like this. And I guarantee you, none of you have heard, well, you talked about too much storage, Charles. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not going to buy it. You can't talk enough about storage, which is why we spend more money in our chassis to have a drop-down frame than anybody else. We spend more money on our drop-down chassis just to give 55 square feet of storage in the front. That is the only reason why we do it. So we're spending more money on our chassis just to give our benefit to the end user, right? To give you more bang for your buck. So you guys get the game, right? I can even narrow it down to my baggage doors on the outside. They're thick, just like a 50, right? Some of these manufacturers are skimping on everything. They're giving you thin baggage doors, which what happens to that over time? It warps, right? You got a piano hinge and rusts. I mean, I can break it down to an LED light on the back. We can break it down to a baggage compartment. The reality is finding out what the hot buttons are. And I can guarantee you through this pitch, we can beat anybody in the business. Hands down, and I have, right? And I'm not telling you that I'm perfect. We may not win the battle every time with interiors because we have one interior. We drive the ship with less options because we control the deal. So, you know, every single coach like this is 50 amp, 400 watts of solar. It's all consistent, right? And you're not really, you know, anytime you make that mistake, you're just leaving gross out the window, right? So, and then here's another thing, guys. I don't have a sister product. What other manufacturer can say that, right? I'm not going against my own DNA, right? So it's a really nice way to be able to build gross. And it's already tough as it is to overcome all these objections with the other guys. But how do you overcome an objection against the Flagstaff when you're selling a Rockwood? The only way you win that battle is to lose gross. I'm sorry, Salem, Wildwood, it doesn't matter, right? And I'm not bashing these guys. There's a reason why we're set up the way we are, right? So as far as parts goes, it's really fun to be able to talk about that. Rack and pinion slides.